We're going to be talking today about April and all the things that we have going on astrologically or human design wise. In the month of April, we've got a lot of stuff happening in the celestial weather. So if you remember back at the beginning of the year, when we looked at the celestial weather for the year, I brought out my friend Existential Crisis Bob. And we talked about how we have to get through May, right? Bob has to make it through May. And then hopefully things will lighten up a little bit, at least until the fall. But April is one of those months where you may want to get your own existential crisis Bob and cuddle up on the couch with a big fuzzy weighted blanket, because there's a lot going on. And I want to give you some thoughts and some insights into all the things happening this month, in the month of April. So before we get started, I always like to give us a theme, a contemplation for the month, because each month kind of has its own personality and its own curriculum, if you will. And certainly the thing that I would like to just remind you as we play with the energy of April, I want to remind you first and foremost that the universe is a feedback loop. And what that means is that what you see in your outer world is going to be a reflection of what you might be experiencing in your inner world. So your outer world is a feedback loop. What you think, your story, and that's really the most important thing. The narrative that you're telling is a feedback loop. So when things are showing up in your outer reality, it's not screwing up. You didn't get it wrong. You're not whatever you might fill in with, oh my gosh, this is happening. I want you to think about that outer reality being a mirror, a cosmic mirror that's showing back to you what is going on in your story, in your narrative, and how perhaps you might need to rewrite that narrative. I also want to remind you of something really, really important. Being anti something or resisting something is the equivalent of continuing to create it. When we are pretending like we're not looking at something, or we're avoiding something, or we're being triggered when we see something, that is actually a way of perpetuating a field of information on the quantum level. And so this month, I want you to explore all those places where you are anti something, or you think you want the opposite of something. And remember, when we talk about a binary concept, we're talking about the opposite of something is the absence of something. And so when we start talking about things like war, which is a big theme this month, because we have a lot of opportunities this month to explore how we're going to create something, our experience of the world. And war is one of those experiences that is being called up by the planetary energy for us to explore that idea of war. Being against war or being anti-war, the opposite of war is not peace. It's just the absence of war. And I want you to think about that for a minute, because the absence of war is not peace. It's actually a space. And sometimes that is an uneasy space. I would say that in the United States, we are not potentially, maybe, depending on your political leanings, we're not actively at war like in the way that we were, say, in World War II. But we are for sure in this absent space. We're in a state of unease, okay? We're in a state of unease. When we start creating, and we create or we resist something, or we try to avoid something, as I said, we're validating the existence of that thing. If you don't want that thing, you don't want to be anti that thing. You want to shift your perspective to a very important question. And this is the question for this month. You ready? Write this down, because this is the question that every time you encounter an obstacle this month, I want you to ask yourself this question. The question is, what do you want? What do you want? Because if you are avoiding something or resisting something and not filling the void that leaves with an exploration of what do you want, you're just creating an uneasy space, an empty space. And part of what happens is when we go through cycles of disruption and upheaval, and we're in one, we have a tendency to land in these creative voids. And I would say that, that void is the pushing back against the old story, pushing away from the old story. We know that we're not who we used to be, but we're in this space where we don't always know who we want to be next, how we want to be next. And when we go into that void state, if we don't fill it with the answer to the question, what do you want? We run the risk of going back to how things used to be, of trying to be conservative, trying to go back to establish an identity that doesn't exist anymore. And so we'll see when Pluto shifts this month, we'll see a relief of some of that fear around, I don't know where I'm headed. I don't know what I want. There's this void. I don't know what to do with this void. Some of that pressure is getting relieved this month. And that energy and that directive towards conservatism, trying to conserve the way things used to be, that energy is shifting a little bit, which I think is going to be a relief for a lot of people. But it still doesn't necessarily keep us in that space of looking forward. We need to be looking forward. We need to be filling the void that's left when we change the story with the new story of what we want. And so the other explorations that I want you to think about this month is, do you have the faith to create what it is that you truly want? Because this is a month where we are going down to the mat and we are wrestling with faith, team A, and fear, team B. These two teams are at it all month. And so as we really explore the question, what do I want? You're also being invited to engage in the curriculum of how do you find the faith to overcome the fear? So when we're going through the energy this month, I want you to ask, what do I want? And what old patterns of fear this month need to be dismantled and disrupted so that when I stand in the void, I'm able to fill that void with a vision of what I want. I can fill in those gaps with my desires, right? And those desires can be held with great strength and faith. And that desire being held with faith is really the matrix within which we build the new, right? So we are taking things apart. That's also a theme of this month. We're dismantling things, but we're also building the energetic matrix of what's next. So, okay. If you can see my desk, and you would be laughing, I have like 80 Post-it notes here. So because I want to really be sure that I don't miss anything this month and that you really have a good sense of what's up. Now, I want to just say that we are in the middle of two eclipses. We had a lunar eclipse on March the 25th. We have a solar eclipse on April the 8th. So we're in this pressurized, really interesting sandwich right now, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But I want to add one more element to this pressured sandwich that we're in. The sun has been extraordinarily active. So we are in the peak of a solar cycle. Solar cycles happen periodically. That's the time when you see like a lot of auroras and you'll see a lot of solar flares and solar storms. We've had a lot of the major ones that have been actually disrupting radio frequencies. Anytime we have increased solar activity, first of all, I just want to say, Ra taught that increased solar activity increases the rate of mutation. And actually that we know that from science, that mutation, and that's not always healthy, by the way, the rate of mutation is elevated when there's a high solar cycle, high activity solar cycle. We also know, and this is actually a quotation from a research summary from the Institute of Heart Math, we also know that when we have a lot of active solar energy, like we've had this last week, that the human regulatory system is designed to adapt to daily and seasonal climatic and geomagnetic variations. However, sharp changes in solar and geomagnetic activity and geomagnetic storms can stress these regulatory systems, resulting in alterations in melatonin, sleep deprivation, or sleep cycle. So you might be more tired or you might be having a hard time sleeping. That balance between melatonin and serotonin. So you also might find that you feel a little bit more moody, blood pressure, immune system, reproductive, cardiac, and neurological processes. So if you've just been feeling kind of off this last week, Some of it might be the planets, some of it might be the sun. And so I want you to really recognize when we're in these kinds of intense cycles that also what we have to do is ramp up the self-care. And that means if you are having a hard time sleeping, or if you're feeling really groggy and sleepy, then sleep more. Make sure you get outside because that actually helps you balance those melatonin, serotonin cycles. Actually, if you get up and watch the sunrise, that actually helps regulate the pineal gland. Make sure you're drinking enough water, you're getting enough rest, and be gentle with yourselves, because when we get dysregulated in this way, it makes everything seem even that much more intense. Now, on top of that, I usually start with the bigger planets. I'm going to start with the sun and the earth this month. So this month, I'm just going to rattle off the gates that the sun transits through in the month of April. It's primarily an Aries month, moving into Taurus at the end of the month. Aries moves, our gates that the sun transits this month are the gate 21, the gate of self-regulation, the gate 51, a big player on many, many celestial levels all month long, the gate of initiation, the gate 42, the gate of conclusion, the gate 3, the gate of innovation, the gate 27, the gate of accountability, and the gate 24, the gate of blessings. Now, what that does is it really sets us up to contemplate and explore in this Aries cycle, who am I, right? It's very personal. It's very ego-based to a certain degree. And it certainly is clearing the way for what's new. The sun is inviting us to explore what's truly valuable and reminding us that we can't go back, right? That we can't go back, that we have to find the blessings, even in the stories that seem hard, and move forward. Now, Aries and Libra have this beautiful relationship. So we see the Earth actually highlighting the theme of Libra, which is also the same contrast that we see in our eclipse axis. That relationship between Aries and Libra is all about who am I? What do I want in the context of my relationships, and finding that balance between your personal self and the role in which you play, the roles in which you play in your relationships, in your community, even in your government. So there's this sort of this relationship between personal self and what do I want and what do I need versus your community self, your tribal self, your self within the context of your important relationships and your role that you play within the human story. And so we see this push me, pull you kind of energy in this Aries Libra dynamic. Now, the Earth, which is going to be holding Libra energy, goes through the gate 48, the gate of depth, the gate 57, the gate of instinct, the gate 32, the gate of endurance, the gate 50, the gate of caring, the gate 28, the gate of adventure, and the gate 44, which is an energy that invites us to release the patterns of the past. Now, if you are familiar with human design, you'll know that all of those gates live on the spleen center, or the self-actualization center, which is a place where instinct lives. It's a place where fear lives. And all of these gates have the potential to trigger existential fears within us. And so the Earth, which is normally an energy that grounds us, is also inviting us to look at how do we ground ourselves in an awareness of right timing, in being able to stay the course. How do we ground ourselves in our own mastery over fear, i.e. courage? How do we cultivate courage? And really, there's a big invitation here in this Earth energy to release old patterns where we've been holding ourselves back for too long. And so this big theme of fear versus faith, and how have I allowed fear to hold myself back from stretching myself big enough into goals and explorations that allow me to fulfill my dreams, and this idea of who am I and what do I want, these themes are playing out in a big way. And you can certainly see that fear and old patterns can be holding us back. And of course, Aries is kind of a fiery, youthful energy. It holds us back and might trigger in us some temper tantrums on a personal level and on a massive collective level. And so when we look at these energies, we're looking at the potential for conflict and dare I say it, war that's rooted in fear, that's rooted in old fear-based patterns that are emerging for us to heal or for us to react to in the shadow. And so we are being invited, and we've been schooled in this now for a long, long time. The planets have been giving us this curriculum of fear versus faith and giving us the reminder that the biggest thing we can do to combat fear is to cultivate, to be sovereign over the story we tell about who we are, how we are, and what we deserve. And not deserving in that youthful, cape swooshing, I deserve it all kind of way, but deserving from the place of enoughness, deserving from a place of recognizing that we are a once in a lifetime cosmic event, that because we are inherently valuable, everybody else is also inherently valuable, and that our role in the world becomes not to only obviously take care of our own value, but to ensure that everyone else around us is also being taken care of. The ego circuit and all of this energy that is Aries energy is ultimately about sharing. It's about crafting resources that can be sustained over time for the good of the whole. And so when we are afraid that we are not enough, then we react in old patterns of fear, old trauma-based patterns, and then we fight, right? But when we know that we are enough and we trust in enoughness and we understand our enoughness and our value and the value of each and every living human being and sentient being on the planet, then we start to confront these places of conflict with an intention towards establishing a new way of being at peace and sustaining not only ourselves, but each other. And so we are really, really digging deep in the archetype of what is war and what is peace, and giving ourselves permission to redefine it in a new way. And it certainly can be very triggering. And I certainly would remind us all, if the universe is a feedback loop, and what shows up in our outer world is a reflection of who we declare ourselves to be. If you want to be peace, if you want to have peace, you must first be peace. And certainly this month, the exploration is, who is the person that you need to be at peace? Who is the person that you need to be fully embodying your enoughness so that who you are becomes a resource for the others around you? That brings us, that's the big floofy stuff. Of course, this all plays out on a personal level. And certainly it's a place where we have to explore what boundaries do we need to set? How do we need to better nurture ourselves? How do we need to sustain ourselves so that we can better serve others and not in a different order? We cannot martyr ourselves. We can, and in fact, you can never create peace or martyrdom, because the end result of martyrdom is not peace, it's obliteration, right? That's just by definition. And so we must explore our own self-worth in the context of, what do we want? If you are the person who really values yourself, what does that person want? And what does that person deserve? And really looking at that, not from a place of entitlement, from a place of sustainability. What do you need to really stay aligned with who you are? All right, deep breaths. Let's talk about the eclipses. So as I said, we had a lunar eclipse on March the 25th, highlighting the gate 18, the gate of realignment in quantum human design. On April the 8th, we have a full solar eclipse in the United States. That solar eclipse sits on the gate 51, the gate of initiation. Sometimes in traditional human design, we call it the gate of shock. And it certainly sets us up for a very interesting, very powerful dynamic. So we're really in between these two energies right now. So we've been realigning. Now that realignment is about self-mastery. What patterns do you have? What habits do you have? What practice do you need to cultivate to continue expanding upon that thing that that drives you, that's so deeply rooted in joy? And so when we look at this energy, we're really looking at, how do we clear the path for more joy? How do we clear the path for our own self-actualization? And what do we need to begin? What new beginnings do we need to start in order for us to fully move into the full expression of our authentic self and our higher purpose? And I am going to underscore again the phrase higher purpose. That's another big theme that gets highlighted this month. Now, the gate 51 in the shadow can be really unpleasant. It's an energy that points towards the G center. It's part of the heart chakra. And it is an energy that reminds us when we get off course that we're here for something bigger. We're here for something greater, that we have a higher purpose. And that higher purpose is literally rooted in love. That G center energy is all about love, that we literally are love. That's our identity. We are love. And that when we step into that identity and the fulfillment of our higher purpose, then that gate 51 becomes an amplifying energy. It becomes an energy that gives us the fuel to sustain that expression of love. That same energy, though, is, if you look at this in the context of, say, the shamanic journey, that same 51 energy is the energy of death. It is an energy that comes in and lays flat everything that needs to die in order for you to emerge into your higher purpose or your higher expression of love, right? It's that transformative energy. It's the energy of the phoenix, right? That fire, that conflagration that burns things down so that we can begin again in a more aligned, more expansive way. Now, this gate 51 can be a place where people, if your self-worth is not healthy, it's a place where you can fight, where you can compete, where you can usurp, where you can take, where you can shatter other people's connection to love. And so this can be a place where we see a lot of energy for war. So think about the 51 as being an energy that embodies a god of war in its shadow. Now, in its highest expression, it is a god of self-protection. It is a god that brings us the resources we need to establish a place where innocence is safe, where we live in connection to our higher purpose and source, where we know what's the next right step to fulfill our higher purpose. So we're in this sandwich right now where we're really asking ourselves, again, that question, who am I? And not just who am I in my mundane life, but spiritually, who am I? What is my bigger purpose in life? And what steps do I need to take to bring things that no longer serve me? What things do I need to bring to conclusion? And what new ways of being do I need to initiate? And so this can become a very powerful springtime energy, if you will, metaphorically, that amplifies and presses on us to really explore what needs to be cleared out of the way so that I can really fulfill my purpose. Now, to make things even more exciting, in addition to being in this eclipse sandwich and having this massive solar cycle happening, Chiron, the planet that brings to light our core wound. And of course, we're looking at this through the lens of the human story, right? That our core wound is oftentimes this core wound of perceiving ourselves as being separate from source. This Chiron is also highlighting this gate 51, this initiation energy. And again, in the highest expression, this is moving into the fulfillment of higher purpose, moving towards the innocence, if you will, and the natural order of being people, humans, light beings in a human story. In the shadow, this can be very disruptive. The gate 51 can very much be an energy that pulls the rug out from under your feet. Now, and that eventually you'll be able to look back on it and go, oh, I can see the perfection of this experience. But in reality, when we're in the thick of it, it can feel really cataclysmic and it has the potential to feel really disruptive. And so I really want to remind you that as we go into, and by the way, we've been in a disruptive cycle all year. So it's not like it's brand new, but it's definitely going to feel a little extra, right? And as we're in this disruption, remember that it's really clearing the path for love. And that when we get things disrupted and you're sort of standing in the space that gets created from the disruption, use that as a creative opportunity. Use that as an opportunity to reclaim sovereignty over the story you tell yourself and the world about who you are and how you are. When you're in that void, remind yourself you're fully supported, that you're just worthy of that support. And even if you don't know what's next, you can engineer what's next by filling in that gap with a clear vision of what do you want? Who am I and what do I want? Because that level of directing that cosmic energy will get you to the other side of the void and get you into a new phase of expansion. Well, we don't just have solar flares. We don't just have this eclipse sandwich. We don't just have Chiron sitting there going, hey, I'm going to juice this up even a little bit more. We also have Mercury going retrograde starting on April the 2nd until April the 25th. We're in the shadow of this Mercury cycle until May the 13th. Now, remember, retrograde cycles are not about going backwards. They are cycles of contemplation and inner reflection. But Mercury is the planet of communication. And when Mercury goes into a retrograde cycle, it has a tendency to make things feel confusing or murky or challenging. And so in a time when we're aligning and everybody's got opinions and things are shocking and things are taking unexpected twists and turns, communication is also a little murky. And so definitely I would say make sure right now in this cycle that we're coming up on next week, when Mercury goes retrograde, double check everything that you say things slowly, take your time to really craft really intentional conversations. Don't be afraid to ask for clarity. Don't react, take a breath, be kind to each other, double check everything. And if something gets screwed up, and it will, just smile and know that this is an opportunity to continue to recalibrate. If we look at everything as an opportunity and we don't look at these situations as being problematic, and we start to see every opportunity as an opportunity. What am I here to learn? What's the problem? How can I explore a solution to this challenge? Then you'll get through this cycle with great expansion. Now, Mercury is going retrograde through the gate 3, the gate of innovation, the gate 42, the gate of conclusion, and the gate 51, the gate of initiation. And so, again, we have this theme of recognizing that if we're going to bring change, if we're going to create innovatively, then we have to clear the things that are in the way. So Mercury is actually bringing us this really nice opportunity to get serious about any kind of spring cleaning that we need to do in our lives. And that's not just your stuff. That's not just your closets and whatever's in your garage or your basement. It's also about looking at where are there old patterns or old situations or difficult circumstances, difficult conversations, or things you need to handle in order to make enough room for something new. If you're holding on and you're not setting those boundaries, if you're not having those conversations, if you're not getting really clear about how do you make sure you have enough room, if you will, to be able to really build what's next, what's new. If you're trying to squeeze it in next to the old stuff, it's not going to work. So Mercury is really saying, hey, use this cycle to really clean house, if you will, to really set the stage for what's next for yourself. And of course, as Mercury goes through the 51 at the end of this retrograde cycle, it's a time when the conversations that you need to have or you may experience might feel shocking and unexpected, but they're really serving the function of helping you clear house, clear space for what's next. And so again, the key here becomes to not react, do not react the old patterns of fear, but rather if something comes your way that is a twist and a turn in the plot outline, which by the way, this is in the nodes too. So like we have this entire plot outline there is no plot outline. The plot outline is so twisted that none of us really knows what's actually going on, which is an important thing to remember. And the reason why this is so important is it's a reminder to check in with yourself and ask yourself, does this feel true? Is this true? That's why you have an inner authority. Your body is a great compass to let you know if what you're hearing is actually true or not. And certainly I would say, this energy is really an invitation again to not take it personally and to see anything that hits the fan as an opportunity, as a revelation, as something that is showing you, here's what is true. Here's what might have been blocking your view. We're going to move it out of the way so that you have more room for growth. Now, on April the 11th, we have a Cassimi between Mercury and the Sun. And again, highlighting the gate 42, the gate of conclusion. So again, a really optimal time for you to look at what old work needs to be brought to completion so that there's more room for something new. But though that energy, those completions can feel really cataclysmic under the influence of the energy that we have right now. All right, let's move now to Venus and Mars. By the way, on April the 19th, Venus and Mars, Venus is conjunct Mercury again on the gate 51. Da-da-da. So you probably should start building an altar to the gate of the gate 51 and recognize that this month is an initiation. You will be initiated this month. So Venus, I'm just going to name again, give you just a long list of the gates here. If you want to take notes, you can watch the replay, or we'll post a replay later with captions. But Venus is moving through the gate 36, the gate 25, the gate 17, the 21, the 51, the 42, and the 3. And you've probably just seen, because Mercury was also going retrograde through the 51, the 42, and the 3. So this whole theme of initiation, conclusion, innovation is coming up in a couple of different major places in the celestial weather. Mars is a little bit behind. Mars is still doing last month's theme. And last month's theme was peace or not, right? With the gate 37, 63, suspicion or opportunity, 22, grace or not. And of course, the 36, chaos or the disruption of dysfunctional patterns. So Mars is still, again, very much in this war energy and really exploring what is peace, what is war, how do we define it, how do we create it? I'm suspicious of you, you're suspicious of me. How do we turn this into a relationship that we can leverage for the greater good? And how do we take our time? It's really what Mars is teaching us right now. How do we take our time so that we are not reacting, same theme, right? And we are instead crafting an intentional solution that is flexible and exploratory, that allows us to rewrite the narrative that we've been telling about who we are and how we are, and allows us to break out of dysfunctional patterns that are rooted in lack and fear. So again, if you want to really work just with that energy of Mars, again, an exploration around what do I want and how do I hold the vibrational frequency of what I want? Really important to recognize that when this energy is at play, reactivity is the norm. And when you want to create something new, you cannot react. And so we are really being, I'll say, invited or kicked in the butt to really let go of old patterns, to really have to stretch beyond what we know is possible, and to really, I'm not going to say resist fear because you can't, but I really want to encourage you to contemplate, how are you going to cultivate courage? How are you going to cultivate the courage to try a different pattern, something new, a new way of responding to what's going on around you? Now, let's look at Jupiter and Saturn. I love the relationship between Jupiter and Saturn. To me, Saturn brings a curriculum, and Jupiter sort of says, if you fulfill the curriculum that Saturn brings, Jupiter is sort of the A+ on your report card. Jupiter shows you where your blessings or your expansion will. Now, Saturn is sitting on the 63, my Saturn return, yay! So Saturn is really bringing up the theme of suspicion and doubt and self-doubt, which is a very beautiful companion to fear, right? So again, a really important time to explore any place where you may be doubting yourself, doubting in your sufficiency, doubting that anything is possible. Is really an invitation to look at what else is possible and how do I transcend doubt. This is an experimental energy. It's an energy of curiosity that invites us to look at everything through the lens of opportunity rather than doubt and suspicion. And so I certainly want to encourage you this month, if you get triggered in an area that really stirs up self-doubt, and I will share with you, I've definitely been, down in the weeds with that myself personally, that it is an opportunity for you to really listen to the voices in your head and ask yourself, what is the source of those voices? Is what the voice saying to you actually true? Is it actually true? Are you actually not capable? No, you are totally capable, right? Is it true? And how do you need to reframe the story and maybe even retrain your self-doubt to have a different tone, to take a different tone, right? To have a different way of communicating with you so that you are not stuck in self-doubt, but you are retraining yourself to see things as opportunities and possibilities. Now, the reward comes to the gate 2, the gate of allowing. So we begin, when we do this work, we begin to allow ourselves to receive more, right? To receive all the support that we need to fulfill the story of who we are. And Jupiter moves to the gate 23, and we get insights, right? All of a sudden we get those drop-in ideas, that knowingness, those downloads come, and we begin to see and reframe our perspective in better ways, in ways that transform the ways in which we think and transform and create the opportunity, the openings for new patterns. Uranus also continues with this same theme, highlighting also the gate 23, the gate of insight. So same thing, Uranus is bringing us unusual insights into what needs to grow, what new insights and thought forms need to be expanded upon. So trust your knowingness this month. When things drop in, trust them. You don't have to have the logical proof. Sometimes when those things drop in and your body, like when you get those chills, like when you get that idea and you get that physical, visceral response, trust that. Don't go down a rabbit hole trying to figure it out. Let yourself simply trust without having to know how you know. Neptune. I am so excited about this. I cannot tell you how excited I am about this. Neptune moves from its position, highlighting the gate 36 on the top right-hand side of the emotional solar plexus. I call this the gate of miracles. This is a place where pattern disruption occurs. Neptune has been sitting on this pattern disruption energy forever. And so many of you have probably felt more emotional than you normally feel. On April the 10th, Neptune moves to the gate 25. Dun, dun, dun. The electromagnetic to the gate 51, bringing us the theme of innocence, bringing us this theme of connection to source, connection to our higher purpose. Now, Neptune is a spiritual planet. It's all about where your spiritual purpose lives. And certainly Neptune shining its light on the 25, which is also where your spiritual purpose lives in the chart, really deepens your connection to your bigger purpose, your bigger why, your bigger spiritual purpose. And so again, as we explore this question, who am I and what do I want? Neptune is bringing us into an exploration that transcends our regular mundane definition of who we are and reminds us of our spiritual connection, our connection to source. This is the same energy, by the way, that calibrates the magnetic monopole and influences what we attract into our life based on our sense of self-worth and value and based on our trust in source. So the more we trust source, the more we know our value, the more we're able to then call in opportunities and experiences that reflect that value. Another really exciting thing, Pluto moves from the 60, the gate of conservation, to the gate 41, the gate of imagination. And so, I love this energy because this is actually the human design new year always starts on the gate 41. If you think about your life, everything that's in your life, everything that's in the world started first as an idea. And so Pluto, this generational planet that brings these big transformative themes to light, has been sitting on conservation and conservatism for a long time. And so we have had this big push towards wanting to go back to how things used to be. This theme of orthodoxy and conservatism is played out all over the place. And as Pluto shifts, we're really moving into the exploration of letting go of the old, that's the 60, letting go of that old, and moving into the exploration of, well, what else is possible? If we can't go back to how things used to be, because you can't, what else are we going to do? What else are we going to create? And to me, it's just a really fun, juicy, to me, it's a very hopeful energy coming on the tails of a cycle, I think, of the old energies sort of having a dying gasp and really, wanting to hold on and hang on. And really, we're at a place where the old can no longer hold on, that with this big Pluto movement, we're moving into the potential for the new to be born. I'm not going to say that there's not going to be a continuing dying gasp, but the grasp that the old has had on our narrative is being released, and our imaginations are opening up. Our creativity is opening up. Our remembering our innate creative power is being reactivated by Pluto. And certainly I would say Pluto is a lot of times about death and rebirth cycles. And so as Pluto sort of comes out of this cycle of death, because I think 60 is a lot about the energy of death and holding on and making do and settling. The 41 is sort of a rebirth energy. And certainly I would say as we come through this cycle, you're going to start to feel with Pluto in this new position of the 25, this opening, this breath of creativity coming in, and people's old resistant stances hopefully softening and creating more space for allowing. So I do also just want to stress that the nodes, the South node is still highlighting the gate 57, the gate of instinct, again, creating this fear and instinct and survival instinct and this holding on to the old potentially, but also the intuition of knowing what's next. And that intuition, again, is not logical. So again, stop trying to figure out why, just trust yourself. And moving into the North Node expression, the 851. So the nodes are kind of like the plot outline of the story. And so again, the story is all about let go, stop letting fear run the show, move into faith, trust in the bigger purpose, trust in the bigger vision. We don't have to get there with struggle, by the way. We don't have to get there by blowing everything up in a dysfunctional way. We can actually ease the transition by continuing to focus on the question, what do you want? And making sure that we're creating space in our daily practice and even in our conversations to explore the question, what do you want? What else is possible? What new thing can we create? What new expansion can we build into our new world, this new way, this beautiful creative opening that we're experiencing as we go through this transition cycle? So that's what I've got for you this month. I have a couple of things I want to share with you. This is the Parenting by Design ebook. As you can see, it's a pretty hefty manual. This is a new ebook that I'm going to be putting out. It's either going to come out tomorrow or next week. I'm about to drop it. We're just finishing up all the technical pieces of getting it ready. It is a totally free resource that I've created for you. It is for parents, it is for teachers, it is for anybody who works with children or anybody who works with parents or anybody who wants to really explore your own inner child and the relationship between children and how to raise resilient children using human design. It is evidence supported. So it's not only just about human design, it's about child development, it is about conditioning, it's about deconditioning, and it is about how do you effectively hear children and I hate the word discipline, but raise them and guide them in such a way that you are serving as a steward for the unfolding of children in a healthy way. So if you want to get a copy of this, I'm going to post the link, Jamie or Teresa, if you want to post the link in chat and post it on Facebook for our Quantum Human Design Facebook group. We have a Facebook group. We'll be dropping this first in the Facebook group for all of our Facebook group members. If you are not in our Facebook group, get in our Facebook group so that you be the first person to get a copy of the Parenting by Design ebook. Also, just want to share one more gift with you. So Teresa Miller is here with me. She is the director of the Understanding Human Design membership. So we have an Understanding Human Design membership community. This is a community of people where we have weekly calls where you can connect with us. You get coaching, you get all kinds of creative fun and activities. You get access to exclusive human design courses that we offer in there. In our membership community, you get weekly calls and live Q&As. There, we have 3 to 5 calls live each month where you can get your quantum human design questions answered. We've got an incredible community of people who are just really excited to hang out together, to connect with each other, to support each other. It's just a beautiful place where, especially if you're new to human design and you're just learning how to speak human design, where there's a whole community of people who speak human design ease and can really lift you up and encourage you to be in your design, to really live and experiment your design in a safe, curated community. This is, as I said, a private community for connection where you can keep the quantum human design conversation going. As I said, you can network with other people. I actually have a bunch of people who are going to be meeting me in New York. I'm doing a live event at the Omega Institute in May. And some of my quantum human design members in our community are coming there for a live event that I'm teaching there. So we work a lot on the reconditioning process, and we work a lot on consciously rewriting your narrative using all kinds of programs. We actually have a program called the Expedition, which is a how to live your design program. It's a 3-month program that we go through a couple of times a year. It's exclusive, again, for our members. It's a powerful process to help you make your human design blueprint practical in everyday life. We also have a weekly recorded energy forecast. So if you like what we talked about today, we have a weekly forecast plus written exercises that go along to help you understand how does the celestial weather impacting your design for the week. It helps you plan your week. It helps you understand how your relationships might be impacted and more. It helps you take back control by knowing what's on the horizon so you can figure out, why is everybody acting so weird this week, right? You can, as my gift to you for being here with us today, and hopefully to give you help you give you a safe space to go as we navigate the April weather. I'm going to give you a free 1-month trial membership to the Understanding Human Design community. This is a one-time use per person. So if you've already taken our free trial, please don't sign up again. But this is an opportunity for you to come experience the membership, meet some of the people in our community. If you want to join us for the free trial membership, quantumhumandesign.com/UHD-free. Again, we'll post the links on the side and below. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Teresa, for being here. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you all for running for some reason, it says that I stopped Teresa's video. Hold on. Try that, Teresa. I want you all to at least get a chance to meet Teresa here. Ta-da! There she is.
There I am. Yay! I'm here.
Good. So this is Teresa. She's the director of the Understanding Human Design community. We have weekly calls with me. We have some calls that Teresa leads as well. She's got a wildly popular program that she leads. It's all about looking at your chart with a creative lens. So you actually have one of those on Monday coming up, right? So if you join the free membership.
We do.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing on Monday.
So on Monday, what we have is called a Cosmic Connection Chat. It's an opportunity for members to get together in small groups and discuss their design. And it gives people a chance to kind of look inward and see how they experience human design, and then discuss your different points of view. The one on Monday is called Love Your Design, and it's a great opportunity to get to take a look at the things that you may find challenging or the things that you aren't sure about, and kind of flip that around and just embrace it and love the pieces of yourself regardless of what they look like, and find a way to make it positive.
Yeah. And I have to say, when Teresa leads our Cosmic Connections, everybody's like, move out of the way, Karen. We want to talk to Teresa. Everybody has a really good time in those. And so if you want to join the membership and get in there for April, you can join Teresa on Monday for the Cosmic Connections. So thank you all. Thank you, Teresa, for being here. Thank you all for joining us. Have a really good April. It sounds dodgy, but remember, self-care, self-care, self-care. Sustain yourself so that you can really nurture yourself. Remember, fear versus faith. Pick faith, not fear. Find your courage and ask yourself, who am I? And don't forget, you are a once-in-a-lifetime cosmic event. The world literally is what it is because you're in it. Don't forget. And we all need you to be the person you were born to be. So take good care of yourselves. Bye. Be well.